Welcome to another live stream, my friends. A pleasant sight for sore eyes. For the first time in 6 full weeks, Bitcoin has actually done something potentially bullish on the 4-hour chart. This is much welcome to see. However, there's no way around it. The bulls still have a ton of work to do. But again, at least this is a start. And you guys, of course, I'm talking about the 4-hour downtrend, even just on a micro level, right? I've been talking about this my last few streams, that as we set lower lows, not to be confused with these smaller ranges inside the macro trend, but as the macro trend develops here, just setting lower lows, confirming lower highs. And I mean, this morning is the first time that we've actually seen one of these break in, like I said, 6 full weeks. So it's a nice sight for sore eyes for sure. I do not necessarily think that Bitcoin is going to new highs or anything like that, but I will give credit where credit is due. And this is the first time that I've seen something bullish in, well, basically a couple of months at this point. So guys, at this point, I wouldn't be too surprised to see some sort of a pullback, but actually the best thing we could see right now, in my opinion, would be to pull back very quickly and come get some sort of a STUBER retest before trending higher. Because as far as a basic STUBER fib setups, I mean, this is one of those times where I'm actually willing to roll the dice on a long if we end up getting some sort of a pullback to a STUBER fib at this point, just because we do have that structure break, right? The fact that we basically invalidated the bearish trend, and to see some sort of a pullback would be the most healthy thing at this point. I know a lot of people will want to FOMO into longs up here as we break out from that resistance. And to be fair, it may just continue trending to the upside. Maybe we don't get that pullback, but at this time, that's kind of what I would like to see. But guys, like I said, there is still a ton of work to do for Bitcoin. And don't get me wrong, there's something that I'm actually more excited about than trading Bitcoin, as you've probably seen in the thumbnail, dealing with altcoins. But at this point, I mean, there is still a ton of resistance for Bitcoin, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing for the market cycle as a whole. But let's just bring up some indicators, specifically the Trend Master indicator. You guys know I love using this one. I've been pointing out the resistance with this for quite some time. And basically, we've had a very serious downtrend with this most recent sell signal. I've been talking about that one since about 110K. And that resistance is basically lining up between 95 and 96,000 US dollars at this point. So even if we do climb a little bit higher, just know that we do still have some resistance up ahead. And guys, something that's interesting that lines up with that level, approximately 96,000, is this is something I was talking about in my last couple streams as well. When I look at the weekly chart, this nasty diagonal support trend line that we have lost with our last weekly close on Sunday evening there. Basically the retest of that, flipping support into resistance, that line basically comes in at around 96,000 US dollars. So that's just additional confluence that there is potential resistance up ahead. So even though, yes, it's great that the 4-hour has broke some structure, but just to understand what kind of macro structure we have on the chart. So even the 4-hour, I mean, if we end up breaking through all this resistance and we start grabbing some of this liquidity, I've been talking about this too quite a bit with the MDX liquidations indicator, there is a ton of liquidity above us. That's another reason why I think that, if we got some sort of a support retest, why I wouldn't be opposed to getting into a long position, because even though I'm not bullish on the trend as a whole, I would at least be willing to swing at something like that, because there is the potential for a much larger move to the upside. I personally don't think that we're going to grab all that liquidity. I think that we are going to have a hell of a time with some of these weekly resistance levels. And as well, I was really expecting the weekly to pull back a little bit further. Like I said yesterday, 86,000 US dollars is not off the table, because that would be just basically the start of support from this range back here, taken from this pivot down here. The 786 is at approximately 86,000 US dollars. So I would still love to come down to those levels and then play some sort of a bounce position. But I mean, we're just going to have to play the chart as it comes, because so far we have at least broke that little bit of a trend, right? So at this point, let's just take a look. Like I said, the logarithmic chart, this retest would actually be significantly higher. And in my opinion, if we are going to retest that one, I think it would take a little bit longer to play out, but something that's very interesting with this is, let's just say we've bottomed right here. Let's look for where a potential resistance retest could end up landing. And I mean, just looking at a STUBER fib, for example, the resistance would basically start again around 117, 118,000 US dollars. So if it took us a while to get there as well, it could very well end up lining up. Let's say, the end of the year, the start of next year, that would be very typical for the end of a market cycle to be basically right at the new year. So we'll see what happens. But either way, I mean, I'm not trading the weekly anyways. I just have it on my radar to accept possibilities, to look ahead and think, does it make sense that we could get some sort of a crazy bounce like that? Yeah, we absolutely could. But the thing is, guys, if we do get back up to these levels, I am not going to be bullish at that time. Like if I can get into some sort of like I was talking about, that position on the 4 hour, if I can get into something like that and run one up to there, yeah, that'll be fantastic. But there's absolutely no way in hell that I would be looking to enter long positions, looking for a breakout as we get back to resistance, just because there's been so many nasty structure breaks on all sorts of time frames. So that is something that we have to be a little bit cautious about. This bounce, one thing that I do like to see about this and why I think it could continue a little bit higher is the retail long short indicator. You guys know I've been bringing this up pretty much every stream for a while now. And I was talking about the fact that basically as long as retail is willing to get wrecked and willing to be long in the dip, we will continue going to the downside. And when shorts start to build again, that's when we can get some sort of relief. So currently we do see that the shorts down here are actually starting to climb, and notice that that's exactly what the price has done as well, right? Because retail finally gave up on longing the dip. They finally started getting FOMO for the short positions. We break that structure. They continue building those short positions anyways, and we continue climbing. So retail is just having a rough go. They always do. But yeah, that's very typical when we see that basically whichever way the retail shorts are going, that's basically which way the price is going. So the opposite of the longs. Bitcoin, as far as the lower time frame, we are starting to see some weakness on the 5 minute, which is why I would love to see that pullback. This is that same fib, well, basically the same structure on the 4 hour, but just zooming into the 5 minute, pulling a bullish fib from where we've bottomed so far. And this is basically how our support looks, basically starting around $90.3 thousand. We have seen a little bit of weakness here. We've already had one little STUBER play out. I did scalp this, but it never ended up turning into much of a runner. But I do still think it's possible that we end up pulling back. So basically on this little trend on the 5 minute, we had a high, higher high. This is our confirmed higher low on the way up. We ended up breaking that here. And then look what happens after we lose that structure. We end up coming right back up to my purple fib pocket, even a little bit higher, but not even above that high. But yeah, basically getting a rejection there, hitting a couple of the targets, but then reversing this trend. So at this point, that is still a valid bearish, well, more of a, I guess, a bearish pivot point at that where we got there. And the fact that the price ended up going lower, I could also pull the fib something like this. Notice we're getting close to that STUBER fib, not quite at the 786, but very possible that we run into a little bit of resistance there. If we end up breaking above 94,000, that's where I think that we're going to end up testing that 95, 96,000, just because that's where we have MDX Trend Master resistance, basically. And guys, like I said, there is some things that I am excited about this, and that would bring me to altcoins. I mean, we have Bitcoin dominance dropping off a cliff a little bit here. And as well, guys, there's a couple positions that I'm still in. Ethereum, I had mentioned that I was taking long because we were in some of my support zones here. Ended up holding the swing fail zone, just wicked very slightly below, but holding on to it. My position at this point is already break even on this, and I did close about a quarter of my position at the 886 here, the bottom purple line here, basically because I don't trust this trend. I don't trust the market volatility right now. We could go either way, so I'm basically keeping my risk management tight. But an even better position is my Aster long. You guys, I shared this about 2 weeks ago. I pointed it out on stream ahead of time. I pointed it out in my Telegram. This position over 700% right now, absolutely crushing it. Only have about 40% of that position still running as a moon bag, but I'm willing to hold on to that because I'm not seeing any weakness or anything. We still have the buy trend here on the 4-hour. We held my swing fail position there, much like with a position I took on Ethereum. And guys, if that is something that interests you, you want to see more examples, how I pull fibs, how I look at market structure, some of my trade setup ideas, some of my personal favorite trade strategies, and all that sort of good stuff, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code, get into my Telegram. I was warning about this downtrend for such a long time. Yeah, even this morning, I had pointed out that there was that lower high resistance. I did take a little bit of a loss on a short that I took this morning, but I ended up closing another position in a beautiful profit, and then most of another position higher up short from the previous range. But yeah, guys, like I said, altcoins and Aster specifically, the setup that I shared, absolutely crushing it. Even though Bitcoin has been trending to the downside, Aster has been performing just phenomenally. So like I said, you want more examples of this kind of setup and just how I look at market structure and all that. Like I said, do yourselves a favor, scan that QR code, get into my Telegram. Let me know in the chat how you guys are doing. Thumbs up if you guys are surviving. Smash that thumbs up if you're absolutely crushing it and thriving. Those of you in my Telegram, as well as in these live streams, you should be surviving quite well because we have been all over this trend. Like I said, other than this resistance, this white line here, that was my confirmed lower high that I was talking about this morning. Since we ended up invalidating that little bit of a short that I took at about 92.3 thousand, it ended up getting stopped out. But like I said, I was in some other shorts from the higher up range. Actually, at this point, those are both closed. So I'm actually not in a short on Bitcoin right now, but willing to do it again when we start getting up towards those resistance levels. Bitcoin dominance, like I said, kind of dropping off a cliff here. I love to see that on the 4-hour that we lost this higher buy trend, because the Bitcoin dominance dropping is actually quite bullish for the market, just so there's no confusion. Basically what we see, and especially the fact that, Bitcoin is actually climbing in price and a lot of altcoins are starting to get those pushes to the upside. A lot of altcoins just sitting at nice support levels and that sort of thing. That's a recipe with altcoins hitting important support levels, with Bitcoin dominance dropping, with Bitcoin finding some sort of footing where it's, at least finding some sort of signs of life and actually finding some support. That's very good, because what we see is basically, for one, Bitcoin is climbing, even though the dominance is dropping. And that also means that the bigger players, most likely the people who haven't been getting wrecked on this trend, are basically going into riskier assets, right? As Bitcoin dominance is dropping, that means that a lot of that money's flowing into the smaller and more risky assets. And, that's one of those things why I believe that, we could see some sort of an altcoin cycle. Now, that does not mean that I'm bullish on the entire market, right? That theory of altcoins potentially starting an altcoin season, guys, that would very much fit into my theory that the Bitcoin top is in. Unfortunately, I mean, it depends. I would personally rather have an altcoin season than to see Bitcoin climb, a little bit higher, maybe 10, 20% higher, whatever. I would rather see altcoins get their time in the sun, because quite often that's what happens, right? Is everyone was very bullish on altcoins way too early in this market cycle. And now if Bitcoin has actually topped and people have, smart money has made a lot of money with Bitcoin, the safer asset, as they distribute their Bitcoin and start, basically going into higher risk assets, that would be very good for the altcoin market. But that means that, it's very possible that Bitcoin just kind of trades sideways or maybe slowly grinds down, and then altcoins have their moment in the sun, like I said earlier. So I would love to see that. Few altcoins of choice that I've been watching and trading recently: Zcash. I only have about 20% of my short left running from this Stuber short. I just like with Ethereum, I don't really trust this market and holding on to positions without some tight risk management, especially Zcash. I would love to see this end up being a perfect reversal where I absolutely nail the top. I would love to see that, you guys. But truth be told, this coin has been on an absolute moon mission. And even though we lost some structure, it has been known to do that in the past and then just carry on trending higher. The macro trend on this thing is absolutely insane. So I do have a hard time betting against it, basically. And that's why I'm willing to update my stop loss to break even though we haven't hit my second target yet, because I just don't trust being in that position all that much. Ethereum, like I already said, so far we are holding my swing fail pocket, this green box down here. This is on the 1 hour, even if I zoom out to the 4 hour, whatever, same type of thing, right? Still not looking so bad, but again, I just don't overly trust the market right now. Tau, this is one that I've been watching recently. The 4 hour, I still really have concerns that it's going to drop a lot lower. We are going to have to see. Obviously, that doesn't have to happen. Maybe we end up reclaiming this resistance of this indicator, printing a buy signal and actually trending higher, or, maybe even just trending higher enough to get some sort of a Stuber rejection. If we pull the fib basically from our highs to our current lows, we're going to have to see what happens. Basically, as it stands right now, we still have these blue lines here, our resistance from the MDX Trendmaster, and we still haven't come close to filling this wick back here. Haven't even tested the 786, 886 of that wick fib pull. So I still think it can push lower. But again, we'll have to see. If we start reclaiming some of these levels, then it could absolutely start staircasing higher again. But so far, it's basically the bulls got some work to do there. Solana is another one I have mixed feelings about right now. Technically on the micro trend, Solana has not broke the lower high yet. And I mean, I say micro trend, it is on the 4 hour. But basically, if we're looking at structure for what it is, this would have been a low. This was our lower low. So this would have been our lower high. And then we set another lower low, which means that this is my confirmed lower high on the 4 hour trend. And notice that that's really where we're starting to struggle right now. I would like to see Solana basically break above this whole range here, above $146 approximately. I think that would be a great sign for the bulls. As it stands right now, it's just a little bit risky. It's still, the market's not looking bad yet as far as today's bounce goes. But yeah, again, just understand that the bulls have so much work to do, and we are at a lot of potential resistance levels on a lot of assets. So that's another thing, guys, as when I talk about a potential altcoin season, understand that this cycle is significantly different than previous market cycles. The previous couple market cycles, you could basically buy and hold anything and you would basically do well. This cycle, there is literally tens of millions of different coins out there, and they all can't run, right? You're going to actually have to pick winners, basically. And that's why I still think that, looking at market structure on each individual coin is very important, because I think some are going to outperform the market, whereas others are just going to, drop to the abyss. Aster is a perfect example. Even though Bitcoin's just been getting hammered to the downside, I mean, ever since entering that long 2 weeks ago, Aster has just been kind of consolidating sideways, going to the upside, if anything, and it's been setting structure, creating higher highs on this trend, holding the buy trend here. Aster is one of those that has been performing quite well. So, I think that's going to be the case, where a lot of altcoins just get hammered into oblivion, whereas some of them will still perform well until the end of the cycle. Trollcoin is another one that I've been mentioning recently, and at a very interesting point right now. In my last couple streams, I had mentioned that we were basically trading at this order block here. I basically tripled my position on my spot bags of Trollcoin because, I just can't pass up this buy here. Basically, last time we had this order block here, this is basically where we created an order block and pushed to new highs and basically got about a 20x. I ended up catching, I was in from a little bit lower yet, basically from 1.5 cents, and caught a 25x on that. But I have been aggressively buying back in as we're hitting some of these important support levels. I was also buying on the way down a little bit, but really hammering a lot of my Bitcoin shorting profits into something like this right here. So obviously, guys, this is very high risk. This is only a $40 million market cap asset. It is a meme coin. It is basically the Solana meme coin casino. It's very risky, but the fact that we're holding that order block so far, getting a nice aggressive bounce off this level, and as well, if we end up breaking this white line here, that would basically be the first time that we take out that market structure, just like with Bitcoin on the 4-hour. But this would be with Troll on the daily. That would be basically the first time that we're going to break that kind of structure in a very long time. Nice tight consolidation there. And yeah, if we can break above that, I mean, I don't know what this thing's going to do. I guess we'll see. It's got a strong community on crypto Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. But obviously, yeah, it looks bad, but things always look bad when they're at support. This looks like a very, very, I don't even know where is my brush here. This to me looks like a very, very well-respected and tightly consolidated falling wedge, right? So if we get that horizontal breakout and if we break out of the wedge, I mean, things could get pretty exciting there. So again, I think it strongly depends what the entire market does as a whole. But if Bitcoin dominance keeps dropping, if Bitcoin can, you know, at least stop nuking for a while, if it can just trade sideways or up a little bit, that would be fantastic for altcoins, but we're going to have to see what happens. Let me know in the chat how you guys are doing. I hope you guys are all absolutely crushing it. Again, if you guys do appreciate these live streams and me just keeping a level head on the trend, please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're new here. I love to see there's so many familiar faces in here. I'm not going to read all your names, but I see so many of you guys here every single day. So thank you for always joining me, guys. Thumbs up for you guys as well. But yeah, just trying to be the voice of reason in this market because things are wild. And I mean, you can tell how the emotions flip just by looking at the retail long short ratio. You can literally watch where retail FOMOs into the wrong positions at all the wrong times, right? The fact that right here where longs started climbing was when we were basically up here at resistance. Longs just climbed. Finally retail gives up, starts building those shorts, and we start climbing, right? So it's an absolutely wild time. It's a crazy volatile market. So if you do appreciate that level-headed approach, do me that favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. Let me just catch up on the chat a little bit here. How did the altcoins perform against Bitcoin overnight? It really depended on each coin. Basically, when I woke up, I saw a lot of green in the market. I saw a lot of altcoins that had some decent percentages and whatnot. So, and that's another thing, you guys, actually, that I want to mention is when we had our capitulation or our liquidation event, whatever you want to call it, where even Bitcoin did take a nasty dump there. But you know, it wasn't the same as with altcoins, right? A lot of people were saying that it was a liquidation event, but Bitcoin never even came close. It was still over $60,000 away from the liquidation bands indicator where we typically see those capitulations end. Even at COVID, for example, a lot of people comparing that event to COVID, not even close because COVID actually tested that, whereas this one's $60,000 away still, even after all this dumping. Or about 50,000, I guess, at this point. But yeah, the difference is, though, altcoins did get a capitulation liquidation event, right? A lot of people saw that there was some altcoins on Binance and stuff like that that basically went right to zero, lost 99% within a matter of minutes. That was a big liquidation event. So I still think that all ties into my theory that Bitcoin could slowly start making its way down here, even if we are entering a bear market, guys. And that's a very big if, right? I could be very wrong about this. Like nothing's set in stone. Nobody knows for sure. We're just looking at the chart for what it gives us. But yeah, basically that would tie right in that, you know, Bitcoin could continue, even if it takes a year, start working its way down towards that liquidation band indicator, whereas altcoins did have their liquidation event. So at this point, even if Bitcoin's going to continue trending to the downside, we could still end up seeing that bit of an altcoin cycle or altcoin season rather, right? So we'll have to see. That's all we can really do at this point, is just play the trend as it comes. But yeah, like I said, it's nice to see that on the 4-hour we finally got a sign of life. The fact that we finally, after 6 entire weeks, we finally broke. Even in these ranges here, we had so many very tight lower lows setting lower highs, but still respecting the trend every step of the way until this morning. So, I mean, that's been a beautiful trend as long as you didn't have a bias. Unfortunately, if you finally FOMO'd into a short on the last push, well, you missed the other 6 weeks of looking for those shorts. Not to say there won't be more, but just at this time, we've at least got a bit of a green light for the bulls to potentially take advantage of this. Like I said, if we get some sort of a pullback, now that we broke that structure, get a proper pullback to retest support, yeah, I'll be swinging at a long, right? I have it on my lower time frames mapped out here, but so far I don't really want to FOMO long when we are, getting closer and closer to resistance around that 96K, and as well just showing weakness on lower time frames. I think that the market will very likely eventually want to test some of these support levels before carrying on higher, if it's going to carry on higher. So, Senate approved bill to release Epstein files, just needs the president's signature. I don't know if he'll want to sign that one. Just kidding. I have no idea. 748%. Damn, well played, sir. I feel good when I catch a 48% win. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. That was just a pinpoint accurate entry. Literally, I mean, that white trend line that I had here, also my swing fail pocket, just everything was lining up that it was just one of those trades. I literally was not bullish. Things looked weak. It always does, but support is support until it's broken, basically. So that was just one of those times where it's not all about winning every trade, but it's having that risk reward setup. And in something like this, I mean, even where we're at right now, you guys, to where my stop loss would have been, basically, I actually had some more entries further down. I wanted to bring my average entry down a little bit, but even where we are right now, have achieved a 7-to-1 risk reward so far. Now, obviously, I was selling lower and I sold 60% of this position, but so far it's just running so beautifully. So I like to let the runners run when I can. And that's why I mean, if we go into an alt season, I may have caught literally the very bottom of this thing, like so close to the bottom. That may end up being an absolutely legendary trade. But obviously there's a lot of what ifs there. I'm willing to let it happen if it does, but if it doesn't, whatever. I've paid myself along the way anyways and removed my risk. Looking for more downside in BTC and ETH. I do think they can go lower, but I wouldn't be surprised to see us trend a little bit higher first. A new short on Zcash, I honestly don't know if I would at this point. Just because the fact that we haven't broke this range, right? Ever since pulling this fib, we still have this as our high. I still have this as our low. And until that changes, I don't really want to pull a new fib. Although that being said, it is the 4 hour. So maybe on the 5 minute, technically on the 5 minute, there could be something like this, for example, but I would be treating that as a scalp and keeping my risk management tight on something like that. Cause like I said, I have concerns about shorting against this one, but that's why I'm basically leaving my stop at break even on that one, just for the remaining 20% of my position, just because I don't want to try and find a new trade on that one right now, just because nothing's obviously jumping out at me. So I see that one as high risk at the best of times. And if nothing's really catching my eye as something super obvious, then I don't know how badly I want to play something like that. Congrats on my approach. Well, thank you. I hope you are crushing it. And I'm not sure what my approach is exactly, but keeping a level head, we'll go with that. Does your BTC dominance chart include stable coins? That's a good question. That is a very good question. That's something I should actually bring up the what's that other indicator called? Capital Flow Index. Adrian, if you're still here with me, you know this one. This one might give a little more detail on that sort of thing. Whereas stablecoin dominance is not overly high. It's not super aggressive. It does seem to be dropping a little bit. So we'll see. I haven't used that one a ton myself, but something like that may give you more detailed info. But yeah, that's a great question about the stable coins on the Bitcoin dominance. Crypto Jacker, I agree. BTC dominance dropping while BTC is rising is very good news. If an alts and BTC drops while dominance rises, alts get hammered. Yeah, absolutely. Bought the MDX indicator today. A lot to learn. Right on. Make sure you go check out the dashboard. There is some educational videos. There is a lot of indicators there. I obviously only use a handful of them, but there's so many beautiful indicators in there. So yeah, it may be worth your while to check out some of those educational videos in the dashboard. New entry of Ethereum or Solana. Solana, I do not want to long until it at least breaks some resistance and sees some sort of a pullback. Like if Solana did something like this, I would consider longing this pullback. That would be basically something like this. Notice the eyeball is really drawn to that level lately. Ethereum, I don't trust looking for new longs at this point. I laddered into my green box basically, and like I said, my stop is at break even on that one because I really don't trust it at this point. Yeah, exactly. Crypto Jagger. You used to be able to just basically set it and forget it. You could buy altcoins and just walk away for months or a couple of years and you would do great. But yeah, different this cycle. You know, Tone also a nice guy also. Absolutely. Yeah, then you probably found me through the financial summit there. I'm still partnered with them. This channel is still through them. They still handle the back end stuff. But yeah, it's nice that they gave me my own channel to trade anything crypto basically, because not everyone's into the degenerate timeframes or the shit coins and stuff like that. Exactly, Nuno. I'm just going to say that just because it's the start of your name there, or Mr. Martins. Your strategy really fights against FOMO. That really hits traders at 100%. That's why I love Fibonacci so much. That's why I love trading fibs, is because it really helps you wait for those pullbacks, right? If I have a Fibonacci pull something like this, notice I have everything I need. I have my entries. I have my take profits. I have my invalidations. And from there, whatever happens, if it turns into a breakout from there, fantastic. But it's very nice that I just have all my levels mapped out. I know where my entries are supposed to be. I know where I'm supposed to be taking profits. It really helps take the FOMO and the gut feelings out of trading, right? It's very systematic. And in the game of trading, you need a systematic trade setup that you can repeat over and over to be consistently profitable in these markets. If you're going to try and trade on a gut feeling, it may work out sometimes, but it will not work out in the long run unless you got some sort of a special gift there. But generally speaking, people who try and trade their gut feelings by it looks like this is going to happen, that's a very risky game to play. Yeah, also doing the opposite of retail, being retail is really awesome. Yeah, that's where I love just kind of watching what retail is doing. And obviously it can be hard to play this too, because obviously if this is climbing at the same price that, or at the same time the price is climbing, for example, obviously it's hard to spot that reversal. But just to kind of, it's just fun to watch, and it is a great insight to see what retail is doing. And I mean, when we can see that retail is so so long, happy, just willing to long every single dip that we get. Even if we see these little bounces where retail starts shorting, it's very likely that anytime we get to any sort of important resistance on the trend, we are likely going to see retail start building longs again. And that will be basically a sign that we are going to continue the trend to the downside. So yeah, I absolutely love this indicator myself. Inge on the 4 hour. I will check that one for you, Adrian, buddy, old pal. On the 4 hour. Ooh. Yeah, I feel like I already missed. Well, I have mixed feelings about this. Couple different ways to look at this. From a bearish perspective, we have not filled this big wick from our liquidation event, so we could push lower. The MDX Trendmaster, I don't have this position open at this point. MDX Trendmaster, lower trending sell signals on the 4 hour, and we are currently at the resistance of that indicator as well. From a bullish perspective here, we broke that downtrend and noticed that we did technically come back and retest support. So at this point, I would be a little bit nervous to short unless looking for something that's more of a scalp, basically. I still think it would be high risk because we're so close to support still. But if we look at the micro trend on this 4 hour, we technically had this low, slightly lower low, confirm this as our lower high, and then notice what the price is doing from there so far. Basically a perfect 786 rejection. So I feel like I missed my short opportunity there if I wanted to play that game. But yeah, kind of make or break right there. If Inge can kind of reclaim this resistance right here, which would be around, let's call it $6.95, maybe even a little higher, kind of above $7.10. That's where we would at least be breaking through some important resistance levels. Anyone can find this long indicator free. I believe you need a subscription to MDX ALGO indicators. It is just on there. You might even just be able to make an account on the dashboard. I don't know for sure. Sorry, I can't be of more help there. Adrian, maybe you know. You might just have to create an account on the dashboard and you might have access to this. I'm not sure because this isn't actually one of the Tradingview indicators. This one is a little bit different. But yeah, the 5 minutes still looking a little bit weak. I would still really like to see the Bears end up pushing down here so the Bulls can get a proper retest of support and see what happens from there. Basically, if the Bulls fail at holding that support the first time in 6 weeks that we end up getting some sort of a bullish structure formation on the charts, if we cannot seize that opportunity, then I got very, very bad news for Bitcoin at that point. But we'll have to see. Like I said, so far, I still think that even if we retest support, I think a bounce is absolutely possible. But just be very careful. That does not mean that I'm bullish on the entire trend. I do not think we're going back to all-time highs. I personally think the top is in. I'm very happy to be wrong about that. But we just have so many weekly levels, 4-hourly levels, daily levels. We just have so many levels to start reclaiming for any hopes for the Bitcoin bulls. But I think, you guys, that's about all I wanted to go over today. So one last time, if you appreciate these live streams, please do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And for those of you who are interested in learning and seeing more examples of some of my favorite trade strategies, some of my trade setup ideas, how I use Fibonacci's, how I look at market structure, all that sort of good stuff. You just want more of my thoughts on the market in general, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen, get into my Telegram, or click the link in the description down below. But with that, thank you all so much for being here with me once again, my friends. Thank you. And with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.